there's a high percentage of little people here, so here are 3 stories, and see if you can remember them when you get home. First of all, what happened yesterday. We are now over the whole Christian globe together in Easter tide. This year, the Eastern Bloc was way behind us. They have the old unchanged date. And that's the date that actually the miracle happens, of which I've spoken before. It happened, we saw it happening, it was powerful. The Holy Light, the Patriarch, it has to be the Eastern Patriarch because of the succession from St. James the Apostle, was there, went in with the Armenian Patriarch. The Armenian Patriarch is in the antechamber, and he's the only one, the Greek one, who's allowed to go in. He says these ancient Greek prayers, and during the course of them, or immediately as he begins them, it's fluctuating from year to year, it starts to happen. It starts in the Holy Tomb itself. Blue or green living light comes out of it, gushes out, goes, fills the whole chamber, and it can be seen there through a hole, and somebody was there making the sign, it's come, and the whole basilica fills with joy, and the bells start to ring. And it goes into a column of light in which then there is a contact between heaven and earth. And the Patriarch holds up his 33 candles to the column of light, and they're lit from the finger of God. And they come out, and then he lights all the basilica from there. And actually some already light of themselves. It's a miracle that is going on every year. That then is the first, but it's something which I want to remind you of because one of the patriarchs has commented about it that it's very similar to what we're doing right now. In the Eastern Church, the patriarch or any Eastern priest goes, when he's celebrating, out of the community into the Holy of Holies and is alone with his God. And at Holy Communion, the holy doors are actually closed. There's a part of the rite which says, "Tastiras, tastiras," the doors, and the doors are closed, and he's alone with God. Well, the Patriarch has noted that it's similar when he goes into the encounter with God there. He's alone, and God meets him. It's not just God meeting one man, it's God meeting the whole of mankind in his hand. That's us too. Remember that next time you receive Holy Communion. Don't get distracted. There's too much going on. That's the first story. Now, since we started in the East, I'll stay there. We had in the Gospel today this promise. If you remain in me, remember that condition. We don't boss the Lord around, we have his conditions, and that means actually obeying his divine will, as John points out. It's nonsense to remain in Jesus and use bad words and hurt people around us. We can't do that. We're not remaining in him if we do. If you remain in me, Jesus says, and my words remain in you, that is, we obey him, you may ask what you will, and you shall get it. Now, this is for you little people. It happened, and it did happen, in the heart of the communist persecution, somewhere in that bloc, Russia, I believe. And it had to be kept quiet for years, for obvious reasons, but it did happen, and it was this. What happened in this persecution going on for a long time was the faith was carried on in secret, and by, quite often, the grandparents. Parents were indoctrinated, but the grandparents still had it. And they played with the children and whispered things into their ears. So some of the children had it, quite strongly actually. And this was the case in this, by now, communist school. It was full of little children like yourself, and the communist teacher was indoctrinating them about what to think and not to think. But there was this girl who was particularly faithful. She knew what was what, and wouldn't be told what was what. And the teacher hated her. And at one point came out with this: all right, if he exists, tell him to come here and show himself. There was a silence. And this girl, before all the others in class, got up and said, "All right, we will. We have a promise." And it was just this, what I've read. And she knew also the Lord had promised that when 2 or 3 agreed on earth about what they were to ask, it would be done for them. And she claimed this promise before her companions, all about your age. And all of them, without exception, said this: "Come, Lord Jesus!" Suddenly, the door opened, and a beautiful, blue, bright, shining ball as bright as the sun came in, and in it was a beautiful, shining child. I think you know who it was. He didn't say anything, but he beamed at the children who believed in his word. As quietly as he came, he went away. The teacher was distraught. She ran to the headmaster and said what happened. The last we heard of her was that she'd been discreetly removed from the scene and sent for treatment in an asylum. But we know the story, don't we? Another happened about the same time. I forget which country it was, and it was the time when they were closing convents, and there was a reunion of the heads of an order, or of nuns, because in the East they don't have orders, they have a whole sisterhood of orders. It's all together. They just belong to the whole monastic community. It goes right back to the desert, actually. You can't become a monk, it has to be given to you from the desert. It goes right back to Egypt. That's another story. And they were there praying and wondering what to do. And they were conducting their meeting before an icon, as would happen in the East. It was, I believe, an icon of Our Lady, and something happened. As they were praying for guidance, the icon started to change. It started at the top. Now, as you have seen, there's been a facelift to this chapel and the other chapel because of all the smoke and incense. It happens over a while that it changes colour. It's now bright as it was years ago. Well, in these icons, they're black with soot and incense, and that was the case with this old icon. As they prayed before this icon, the top started to be cleaned perfectly, metre, or rather millimetre by metre, from top to bottom, as it had been when made by the holy monk that would have written it. And it got to the bottom right hand corner. Now in the East, one does not put one's name on an icon. It's not allowed. The name that goes on the icon is the name of the bishop that consecrates it, that chrismates it, and it goes on the back. So this was an exception, because the angels who were cleaning this icon left their little signature. It was in the bottom right hand corner, and all it was this bit will leave undone. Rather as in the war. If you go now to southern England, you might go to Portsmouth and see the shell of a church deliberately left there to show what bombardment meant in the war. So it is that somewhere in the Eastern world, this icon can still be seen with the signature of the angels. My friends, we're praying with angels when we're at the altar. Don't be distracted, for here too we have the explosion of light. If we had the ears and eyes of angels, we would see far more than we actually do right now. I believe in God, the Father Almighty.